Now, as you may well know, I've had a few emails which I'll get to shortly. Norman Thomas, well known in this parish and in Radio City's parish, has passed away. Someone who knew extremely well was Paul Rowley, who worked with him. Oh, goodness knows how many. Paul Rowley, of course, works in Westminster as political correspondent. Paul, you're ringing from Westminster, are you? Are you there? Well, I'm not sure.
Norman.
I've got you now. Sorry, I had the wrong line. I was not told which line you were on.
Yeah, I knew Norman from the day he started in radio, really, at Radio City, when it came on air in October 1974. He was part of the original presenting team. I was a young lad just out of my teens doing sport with Wally Scott and Elton Wellesby. Right. St Helens lad, very proud to come from St Helens. Cowley Grammar School lad, I seem to remember as well. He was a PE teacher, I think, originally, yes. And he did a lot of discos at St Helens Rugby Club initially. People may remember that. And he had a hinterland as well as being a disc jockey. I mean, he had a pub at one stage in Rainford. I think he had one in Burscough as well. He had a travel agents in Ashton in Makerfield, my hometown. He was a character. His music wasn't my cup of tea, I have to confess, in many respects. But I think I think everybody knew Norman, yep. Uncle Norman, as we all called him. Yep. He used to talk about getting his dibber out, which That's was right. one of his phrases.
Great phrases.
He was a pal of Billy, but they were rivals as well. Yeah. Quite an intense rivalry between the pair of them to see who was the biggest name on Merseyside at the time. And when he started, he was doing a lot of the outside broadcasts, a programme called Venue, and then he did the Saturday morning breakfast show. I used to appear on that doing details of non-league football in those days, but he was there the days of Roger Blythe, Dave Lincoln, Arthur Murphy, Graham Dean, Bill Bingham, John Henry, people in the newsroom that people may remember, like Paul Davis, Nick Pollard went on to ITN, and a young Paul Rowley, but
yes,
very sad. I mean, I'm not quite sure how old Norman was. I seem to remember he told me he was born the year the war finished in 1945, so that would have made him 65 or 66.
I would have guessed he was around that age.
Although there is a thing called a radio age, isn't there? So he might have been a little older.
He might have been 102. I don't know. I doubt it. He was a lovely man. He was a very kind-hearted man. He was a lovely broadcaster. He just had a voice and a way he came right across the microphone, I always thought.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he wasn't just a disc jockey, he was an entertainer, he was an act, and I'm sure being a school teacher helped to control an audience, and everybody remembered him as well. And I think Ali was his wife. He had a young boy as well. Well, he was a young boy, I say.
Gareth,
he's obviously now, Gareth will be... Yeah, absolutely. I remember when he was a baby and he brought him in and he had his little tash at the time. I was talking to somebody who saw him a couple of years ago at Phil Easton's funeral. That's the other thing. It puts it all into perspective. People who listened to Radio City at the time, Phil Easton's gone, Dave Eastwood's gone, Roger Blythe's gone, Ron Davis, the traffic and travel man on both stations, have gone. It's all incredibly sad.
It is very sad. I mean, Norman hadn't been broadcasting now for about a couple of years, I don't think. And I don't think he was very well. He had been ill. But he he used to fill in for us occasionally in recent years, and he loved doing it. He was a joy to work with. He was a lovely, lovely man.
He was. And as I say, he was a character, and that was the thing about him. And he was himself, which is, that's the art, really, And, he wasn't a disc jockey in the old conventional sense at the time. And he was just a lad. And the fact that he was very proud to come from St Helens. I used to do a programme, 25 years ago, called Taking Issue, in which we had politicians on, and we once did it live at the St Helens show, funny enough, alongside the likes of Les Dennis at the time, when he was incredibly big at that stage. And we had a chat. I did this chat show at the St Helens show. It was very odd, really, because while everybody was enjoying themselves, we were talking about serious politics. But amidst it all, I remember the leader of the council at the time, a guy called Brian Green, and we thought, who can we get on who's a big name in St Helens, when there was only one person to put on, and that was Uncle Norman. And he and the council leader were having a right old go, and I never knew Norman had such strong views about things, but they came out that day.
That's interesting, that. I never knew that either, because he was never very political at all. I wouldn't think anything about anything that way.
No, but he had strong views about issues at the time, about, we're talking today about court sentencing and things at Westminster, and that's a big issue with Ken Clarke making a bit of a gaffe, so that's an issue that's going to run for some considerable time. But we had Norman on, and we knew him as the entertainer, the comedy character, really, and I think everybody else, there was a lot of respect for him, and certainly his audiences showed that he was immensely popular. As I say, he started off at the weekends, but then he ended up in the late 70s doing breakfast, and it was a very strong lineup at Radio City because we had Billy there as well, because we nicked him from Radio Merseyside.
That's right.
And, it was quite a formidable lineup. And as I say, his memory will linger on because people have those great memories of those wonderful times. And it spread over several decades as well, because he went off to not just Radio Merseyside, but he also did the entire Northwest in the afternoon when they were sharing programmes, which may be an issue that we'll be discussing again very shortly. But because he was known across the Northwest, he was born in the heart of it in St Helens. It was always St Helens. It was never St Helens. He covered a variety of areas, and he'll be remembered not just on Merseyside but across the region. Did an awful lot of charity work with the Variety Club of Great Britain, I seem to remember. He was a pal of Jerry Marsden's as well. And I tell you what, him, Pete Price are exactly the same. They're incredible name droppers. They seem to know everybody, and it's probably true because they've done an awful lot of work with the people when they were making it big in the entertainment field, in the comedy field, in the music field. But yet again, it's another sad day when we've lost another one of our greats.
Indeed. Paul, thank you very much for talking about him. Paul Rowley, not just a political correspondent, but actually an expert on music, an expert on pretty well anything you'd like to know about football, and a good friend in the old days of Norman Thomas. And talking of Norman, there's David Chilwell emails to say, saddened to hear about Norman's death. Strongest memories of Uncle Norm were the breakfast show in the late 70s when, as a teenager, I didn't want to get up for school. Always sent me off with a great song that I love to this day, Lovely Day by Bill Withers. Any chance of playing out with it today, or even no chance of playing out with it on this programme? I'll try and pass it on to Billy if I can remember to do so, and maybe he'll be able to dig it out for you. And some others. I'd like to say how sorry, says Elizabeth, how sorry I am to hear about Norman. I remember hearing him once say, be alert, the world needs more alerts. I nearly crashed the car laughing. Wasn't lucky enough to meet him, but you felt that I knew him. Sad day. Please pass my condolences on to his family, who will, Elizabeth. Steve in Egberth, how really saddened to hear of the passing of Norman Thomas. He was the radio voice of my childhood, both at Radio City and Radio Merseyside. He was a former PE teacher, as Paul was saying then, former PE teacher at my old school, Dingle Vale, later known as Shawfields. Please pass on my commiserations to all concerned. And from Jack in Allerton, sad to hear of the passing away of Norman Thomas. I, like many, would like to offer my condolences to his wife and family. Norman will be among the first Merseyside broadcasters who changed our ideas of what speaking to the public was all about. He was like an open book without any frills. He'd listen to his public and mostly say the right things. I know you yourself, he writes, we've known Norman for many years, and like many Merseyside broadcasters, he crossed the floor. This city must be said that we are very lucky to have good communicators in the broadcasting industry. We have lost a treasure in Norman. And that's Jack from Elton. Yes, indeed, we have. And I'll pass those emails on to Ali, his wife, along with any other comments that have come and will come.